Welcome to the Pediatric Difficult Intubation Registry Training. In this training, we'll be discussing evaluability of cases, data entry specifics, and bookmarks of interest. When entering cases, the demographics page is the first page you'll see. And I'd like to quickly point out the critical fields here, which are always highlighted in purple. The first one is whether securing the airway was a success or a failure, date of service, date of birth, and weight. Okay, just want to focus really quickly on this one critical field, all attempts to secure the airway. If you intend to use an LMA and you end up using an LMA, that does not meet inclusion criteria that cannot be entered into the registry. However, if you intend to intubate and you're unsuccessful and then you end up using an LMA, those cases are acceptable, but they have to be marked as failed. Of course, just like any other intubation technique with direct laryngoscope, VL, fiber optic, if you use a trach or a surgical airway, those are considered successes as well. Okay, so the first page you'll come to when entering cases is the demographics page. So I have a mock case here that's being entered under criteria 1, which means an attending anesthesiologist got a CNL view of 3 or 4. Took place in the operating room. The securing the airway was ultimately a success, ASA status 3, and then we come to date of service and date of birth. Now we put an alert here because very often these two dates get transposed. So for example, let's say our date of service is 2/2/20 and our date of birth is 1/2/20. Now that's fine. Now it's automatically calculated age in months in years, but in this case it would just be a 1-month-old. So if we make a mistake here and we put 1/2/20 and our date of birth is 2/2/20, it'll automatically fire an alert and let you know, hey, these dates are backwards, so please fix. Quick update, it's not just attending anesthesiologists, but also ENT attending. Okay, so now that we have our date of service and date of birth fixed, we continue down and we see that our kid is ex-preemie and he's syndromic, so paraband, and also PE is abnormal, so we have cleft palate and limited mouth opening. So here, another critical field, we have weight, and for this one, let's say our kid is 30 kilograms, which a 1-month-old obviously would be wrong, and so we get an alert. So weight is out of normal range, check weight or age. That's another alert that we put here just to have people make sure. Now, if this is correct, which in this case it would not be, but if it were correct that this kid weight is above or below the standard range, then you can hit confirm here and that alert will go away. However, we'll reset this and we'll get a more, say 2.1 kilograms. Now that works. So now we can move on, we can save and go to the next page. Okay, so now the second form is the preoperative plan, and the only critical field, again highlighted in purple on this page, on this form, is the actual ventilation technique. So to continue on with our mock case, we're going to say difficulty was unanticipated. It was planned to have the patient breathe spontaneously, but we ended up having a controlled ventilation with muscle relaxant, planned GA, also actual GA, general anesthesia, and induction technique was intravenous. All right, and then we hit complete. The third form is the case data form, and this is where we collect specifics about the case. So everything from ventilation, number of attempts, what devices were used, who used those devices, what view was obtained, passive oxygenation, technical difficulties, complications, all that data will be entered here. The critical fields for the case data form include the total number of intubation attempts, the devices used, complications, and whether there's a discrepancy between the last device used and the successful device. These should be the same. So we'll continue to enter our mock case. So for face mask ventilation, we'll say easy ventilation, and this will trigger a branching logic. So face mask ventilation after administration of muscle relaxant, we'll say improved. Extraglottic airway not attempted. Successful intubation approach, we'll say nasal. And total number of intubation attempts is also triggers a branching logic. So depending on the number of attempts you put here, you'll have to fill out info for each of those attempts. So for this case, we'll just say 2. And now we have attempt 1 data that we have to input and attempt 2 data we have to input. So attempt 1 device we'll say is DL with a Miller blade. Again, just to remind you, we entered this case under criteria 1, which means our attending anesthesiologist tried to DL the patient and had a grade 3 or 4 view. So we'll continue on. No passive oxygenation, no adjuncts used. Attempt 1 provider, again, is our attending anesthesiologist. And was patient paralyzed for attempt 1? No, or I went out of order there, but I'm going to say he had a grade 3 view. Technical difficulties, no. And for complications, we'll just say this kid desatted, so hypoxemia. So now on to attempt 2. So the first attempt failed because our anesthesiologist had a very poor view. Remember, our patient is paraband, cleft palate, limited mouth opening. And we also had planned spontaneous ventilation for attempt 1, but we ended up actually doing controlled ventilation with muscle relaxants. So that will be reflected here in attempt 2. So for the second attempt, we'll say that we did a fiber optic. Actually, it's a good time to show you that we can actually type in our device name, and then it will provide a short list for you instead of using a drop down. Okay, so for passive oxygenation, we'll say modified nasal airway, adjuncts used, none still. Attempt providers still are attending anesthesiologists. For view, we'll put a grade 1 view. The patient was paralyzed this time because we administered muscle relaxant between attempt 1 and attempt 2. And we'll just put none for technical difficulties and none for complication. So because at the top I put that we had a successful nasal approach to intubation, we'll just say that for attempt 2 it was clearly a nasal intubation. So here's also right here for successful devices and techniques, what's here in this drop down should always match whatever the last attempt device was used. So if I come here, and you can see this alert here, alert discrepancy of successful device, so that won't go away. So if I put air track, that will stay there. If I put direct laryngoscopy of Miller blade, which was our first attempt device, this alert will stay. So once we put our fiber optic freehand, it disappears. So you always want to make sure that the last device used in a successful intubation is reflected here for the successful device and techniques. So once all the attempt data is filled in, we have a few more steps in the case data form. The visual analog scale, this is something that the person doing the intubation would have to share with you. So for this one, we'll just put it at, I don't know, 16, so to speak. It's 0 to 100 based on difficulty. Successful provider was our attending anesthesiologist. We do have a spreadsheet that assigns each attending a specific identifier number, and it can also be used to list their number of years of training. So for this one, we'll just put 2, and this attending has been around for 15 years, was fellowship trained. And for medications, we'll just put inhalation agent, propofol. It has, our muscle relaxant was VEC, and it was given prior to the second attempt. And our reversals, neostigmine and glycopyrrolate, were not used until the end of the procedure. So, see, this is complete, and move on to. So the next form is the complications form, and this one is pretty easy and straightforward. So for our mock case, we'll just go in and say our kid was extubated after the procedure, which would mean he was extubated in the operating room. And this field is for complications that happen before or after tracheal intubation, and we had none. We did have one complication, hypoxemia, during the intubation attempt, so that goes in the case data form at that specific attempt. But we had no complications before or after, and we'll just, in our mock case, this kid went straight to the PACU just to recover and went home the same day. So we'll mark this as complete, and we'll save and go to the next form. The final form is our data quality form, and here you get a really nice summary put together by some background calculations here. You can view the equations, and I encourage you to take a look at the data here when you have time. And this is also internally where we keep track of evaluability of cases. So this will provide a really good segue to evaluability and talking about data quality and queries. So here we have we mark whether a case is evaluable, to be determined, or non-evaluable based on the following criteria. So have a look at that, and we'll talk more about evaluability. For more on evaluability, I would encourage everyone to check out the project bookmarks tab. Under that, we have various resources. So for now, I'll click on the training video, and we have a whole video dedicated to REDCap data queries and how to make sure your cases are evaluable, and the process of opening up queries and resolving queries, and just to make sure we collect the best possible data we can. There are also other resources here, such as study forms. Okay, it's asking me to log in, so let me do that. And this is where the data dictionary is, the master list, which is one of the resources that my manager Paula created, REDCap forms, the protocol, site training, study guides, everything you need is here. Bylaws, definition type and definition, or device type and definition, excuse me. The latest IRB approval letter, all that can be found here. And also, one more thing I should show is the CHOP access request form. So anytime there's a study startup or a PI change, you can come right here, any legal documents you need. REDCap access, just click that. If you have a new person coming on who needs access to the registry, REDCap password reset, that's all here. Everything you need, you can find in the resources. So quickly, I just want to give you all one quick tip to locate cases you've entered. So you can go to add edit records, and that'll take you to this screen. And you can use various fields to search for certain patients that you've entered using tracking number, study ID, MRN, or name, birth date. But an easier way to do it would be to go to the search dashboard, and in this search text box, you can enter any criteria that identifies this particular patient and plug that in, and everything pops up from study ID, tracking number, date of birth, date of service, data access group, and record home. So this might be an easier resource for many people to use. So this concludes our training. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, this green banner is at the top of every page in the registry. It has my name and my contact information. Please feel free to reach out to me, and I will help you as best I can.